already. He's so embarrassed.
I know everybody here.
That is true. That is true. Welcome to NAMBA. My name's Yessíca. This is Cameron Hurdus, and he is our artist for today. I wanted to introduce him as an artist, photographer, golf course designer, a gallery manager, and my friend. I've known Cameron now for 5 years, 6 years, and it's never a dull moment, ever.
Sometimes.
So I made the mistake once of saying you were from Seattle. You're actually from Gig Harbor.
That's true, yeah.
In Gig Harbor, your dad was a professor of photography?
High school teacher in Tacoma, actually, yeah.
Professor sounded so much cooler.
No.
So tell us about that. Is that how you got started or interested in photography, or where do you think that came from?
Yeah, he was always into photography. I remember I think it was before college, or maybe as he was on his way to college, he took a road trip by himself because he grew up in New Jersey, and he drove the entire East Coast because he was going to Tulane, and he did it all by himself for like a couple weeks, and he took just like thousands of photos. So I always grew up around photography. Like he always had, we'd watch slideshows, like the old slides. He'd have a little slide projector in the living room. We'd watch photos, and yeah, he had cameras laying around. So I don't even know when I started, but yeah, he was definitely the inspiration, I would say.
And then and you said you don't know when you got started, but were you always just taking photos as a kid as well, or?
No, I started drawing. Like I was just always into art. I started drawing when I was really little. I don't know, and then I just like doing creative things. I played guitar. You know, my grandma got me a guitar. She was an artist. Her husband, my grandpa, had a darkroom in his closet. My uncle's a conductor and writes music. And then my dad was a photographer, so I don't know, at just one point, yeah, I picked up a camera probably from him and just started taking pictures, so.
And then your move to California was actually for you to go to college, and
Yeah.
you majored in?
I majored in art, but that wasn't, I didn't know going in, which isn't a great idea, but I finally took a drawing class my sophomore year, first semester, I think, and my professor thought I had some talent, I guess, and he convinced me to just become an art major, which I don't regret, and it was a lot of fun. But obviously that was mostly painting and drawing in college. I took one photo class, I think, just for fun, basically. So it's always been more of a hobby.
And then, so if you've only taken one photo class, then pretty much you're self-taught with all of your experience then at this point.
Yeah, it's funny, like I never took, because my dad was a teacher, I never took photo in high school or middle school.
So you could avoid your dad being your teacher?
Yeah, basically. I think I sort of did avoid it for that reason. It's like when your parents do something, sometimes you sort of like, not that I was doing the opposite, but I just never.
There's a pushback to kind of be independent and do your own thing.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So he would give me little pointers, but like I would pretty much just go out and shoot whatever I wanted, yeah.
Your background, at least since I've known you, is almost more travel photography and landscapes, which landscapes had never really been a huge part of maybe my kind of, I never really got into it until I met you, and that's really when you opened my eyes to it. Cameron is a gallery manager for H Gallery, just in case anybody didn't know. And I met him a few years ago when he was working with Sylvia White Gallery, and when she closed, well, you moved away from me, and then you came back, and then now that you're back, he's been with me ever since, and you really did open my eyes to landscapes, black and white, things that I would normally kind of put off to the side, mostly because I just didn't know the background, but I didn't have anybody to really break it down for me on why they were important, and I noticed that that's when I really got into it. What is it about landscapes that draws you and keeps you coming back, and you know, why do you have, I mean, why did you sort of put your focus there initially?
Maybe I'm a romantic, I don't know. It's like, when I was growing up, we'd take a lot of road trips, and I couldn't read in the car, I'd get super car sick, you know? So I would just stare out the window for literally like 8 or 10 hours at a time for family road trips, listening to music. And I think for me that, I don't know, there's always that association with sort of feelings like that, and just spending a lot of time driving down to California or through Oregon and just I would almost just memorize like the entire trip, sort of like hill by hill. I could just remember sort of the whole experience, and I think that's probably what got me interested in it. And then when I went abroad in college to Prague and got to go to England, I was lucky enough to like take some trips to Europe, and you know, I just took like hundreds and thousands of photos. It's just, I don't know if it's easier, but I mean, you know, it's a totally different experience than having to shoot in a studio and contact people and, you know, like for this type of show.
We did have a very interesting setup for this show.
Yeah.
When we change out the art here at NAMBA, we always try to kind of come up with something that maybe is similar to what they're doing at the time, and they had just started an improv group here not too long ago, and I thought, oh, portraits might be kind of fun, and I'd been talking to Cameron for a while and about possibly doing a show and, you know, what direction he wanted to go, and we ended up deciding kind of that, well, you volunteered, you said I can do a portrait show, and I said that sounds fantastic, but it was a completely new move for you. Never really shooting portraits, not even really having the equipment to do it, and you totally went for it. So I kind of want to hear, you know, what popped in your mind, what were you thinking, just want to try something new?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you know, with Instagram these days, you can sort of follow all sorts of different artists. And there were a few portrait photographers that I'd started to follow, and it's something I've always been interested in, and obviously in college I painted a lot of, it was mostly figurative work. So maybe I also moved away after college from sort of the figurative subject. But it was interesting when you said, you know, I'm thinking about doing a portrait show, and I was like, that's really weird because I've really been like serious about just building some lights and like doing some portrait photography just because it wasn't something I'd ever done before. And yeah, I mostly do landscapes and maybe architecture. So for me it was a learning experience, but I was excited. I set a standard for myself. Obviously if you're putting together a solo show, there has to be a certain level of like quality to the work, so.
And there was, I mean, you built your own light boxes, you got the PVC pipe out, and I mean, his own screen. It was actually really interesting to kind of watch you go through that. I mean, he had 2 or 3, and then we ended up shooting in my studio. We filmed, we'd had a whole day of shooting, basically, a whole evening of shooting, which started with lots of beer. And ended, but it ended up being a very fun evening. And it was interesting. Some of the people you knew just from kind of passing, and then 1 or 2 people were brand new to you. And it was. I basically filmed very badly. I filmed the photo shoot, and then I tried to make jokes and loosen up while you really concentrated on sort of catching their candid movements. And I mean, how did you feel? Was it something that's fun? You want to do it again? Like, did you feel a connection to these people when you're shooting them?
Yeah, it's even if you know who's coming in, who your subject's going to be, it's not really something you can plan. And I was talking with someone. With digital, it's easier because you can take 100 or 200 shots if you want to of the same person and sort of pick and choose. But you sort of have to. I sort of had an idea of like lighting that I would sort of start with, and then from there I would adjust, obviously, a couple times, just based on their face, because that's really all I was trying to capture, was just from like the shoulders up. But it was a fun experience. And
it's when we were shooting everything, and I used a lot of those shots for promotion for the show, and it was mostly funny and laughing and kind of silly, but the final work and the final collection of photography actually had a very serious tone to it, which was a little bit different than what I definitely expected, having just watched the entire shoot. And you had shot a few people at home, and we had a couple other days, but the majority of the shoot was done there, and we had so much fun. It was hilarious, and you got to know people, and everyone's making jokes, but you were able to capture in the same shoot, you're able to capture very serious moments, or maybe catching people off guard, or getting them in a mode where they were taking it seriously, and that was the tone of the show. Really, I think reflected. Not ability isn't the right word, but really your level of professionalism, and your eye for what your vision is, what you wanted the show to look like.
Yeah, I do prefer like a serious sort of look or style. And I think maybe it does also come from my background is of painting figurative work and like studying a lot of the old masters. Because if you look at a lot of them, I sort of started with what they call like a Rembrandt lighting, which is basically just one light and it covers sort of half the face, and then you have a little triangle of light under the other eye. It's very dramatic. And then from there I would sort of like expand depending on the figure, but I think that's sort of what I have in my head most of the time.
I also had in my mind, and I'd let you have free reign on this. I mean, there was really no guidance whatsoever. Cameron's his show, no direction, do what you want. I think the only thing that I came up with was mugs. We said we're going to have a portrait show. I said, let's call it mugs. And it started out as a joke, but it stuck, and it really was, it ended up being fitting.
Yeah.
Not just because it was slightly humorous, but it really, people ended up having a serious tone in the end. But I fully expected you to go all color, and you had come back at me with some of these black and white pieces, which were actually some of the most striking and really some of my favorites. How do you decide what your final product is going to be for the...
I mean, I love black and white. And obviously, again, with digital, it's easy for me to just like flip a switch and I can sort of compare a person in black and white or color. And really, the black and white ones are just because I felt like it was more dramatic for that particular person. You know, like crystals and some of the other ones, I felt like maybe it was something they were wearing perhaps or something, but like with your cousin Henry or with Stevie, there's just these really intense sort of shadows, and like Henry's face is very, you can sort of see, there was no accent lighting, so it's very like, I don't know, sculptural in the black and white. That's sort of the focus.
I actually, two of my favorite pieces in the show were the father and the son.
Yeah.
And I think partly because I wasn't able to be there to see what these people are like, and all I have to go off is this photograph. It also seems like I'm almost looking into the future with, you see the kind of the younger version, and then you go to to his father. But you captured, in my mind, you captured almost the same exact look, but just with relation, obviously, two different people. But it was, I mean, were you looking for that? Did it happen on accident? Were you trying to get to that place?
Obviously, I shot them, they both came over at the same time, so I shot them one after the other. And I shot them both, I think, looking sort of in opposite directions, but it turned out that my two favorite shots, they were looking basically in the exact same direction. Yeah, it's those two right there. And everyone can tell, which is kind of weird to me, because I don't know if I would necessarily, but I know them. But that's sort of the fun part about this project is, you're trying to sort of capture them in between. Like most people, when they try and pose, it doesn't turn out very well, except Crystal.
Crystal is the exception, yes. Yes. She looks good now.
Unless you're an actor, or something, or a model, when you try and pose, it doesn't generally turn out well. So that's sort of fun, just not randomness, but like it turned out that those were the two best shots of them. And yeah.
What was your favorite part about doing mugs?
I don't know, it was just a goal of mine, I think, I had an idea sort of how I wanted the photos to turn out, and I sort of was pleasantly surprised after the first couple shots that I had sort of building my own sort of like crappy lights and stuff that they like turned out basically how I wanted them to.
I didn't think they were that crappy at all.
Lights.
I did think the foil disc was pushing it a little bit, but I didn't think it was crappy at all.
Yeah, I mean they worked out perfectly. But yeah, I mean it's nice to just sort of set. Obviously, the show was going to happen no matter what, so they had to be pretty decent, and so I think that's the most satisfying part.
I think it was one of the few shows and the openings that I went to, having never put together a portrait show, and I don't show a lot of photography in general, so, but it was one of the few openings I'd been to where, the people came, everybody connected, they were excited to show it off to other people, and for me, it was something that you're always used to seeing the artist be proud of their work, but it was another thing to have the people there to also be proud that they were involved.
Yeah.
And I thought that was definitely a high point, not just for the show, but maybe even as a testament to you as a photographer. They had a good time. They were happy to be there. They were involved. They couldn't wait for the ending.
Yeah.
And even though you think you're not very personal sometimes, or you don't really, you don't know how to chit chat, you do. And I think people do gravitate towards you. And we all just love you so much. Do you think that you'll continue to go in this direction? Do you think you go back to landscapes? What do you think your next project will?
In photography?
In photography.
Shooting dance.
Shooting dance, yeah. I mean, I've been doing a lot working with the gallery and some other projects. It's been more commercial stuff. But again, there's a lot of people involved, which is sort of new to me too. And it's tougher because they're not posing, obviously. It's completely candid, and I'm trying to capture specific moments for promotion and whatever. But I will always shoot landscape. I mean, we're going to England later in the year, and I'm really excited to just take a lot of like landscape and architecture shots there. But I did really enjoy this, and like I said, it was something that I'd always wanted to do, or at least recently. And yeah, it's an enjoyable process. I think you learn a lot about someone just photographing them, honestly, and maybe they do too. I don't know, but it was a fun project for sure.
And you said what's next in photography? Are you planning something else? Do you want to go back to drawing? Do you want to start painting?
Yeah, I just like to do creative things. Like, I mean, we've been putting together little films for promotion, and I will write the music for it, whether it's 30-second or a minute. So I do music, and I've been working with some videography and shooting for websites, and yeah, I started to draw a little more too. So I don't know. I don't have really any concrete plans right now.
Will Mugs 2 be all hand-drawn portraits?
Probably not. No, probably not. Yeah. Since college, I really haven't done that at all. I did enough in college. So, yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for not just being a gallery manager and being a huge part of what we do, but I also want to thank you for the show. It's an excellent show. And I want to thank you for being here, not being so nervous.
No, yeah, of course.
But if we can open up for questions, if anybody has a question about the show or just for Cameron in general. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I would be interested to know, just on the average, how much time you spend with each person? In the session.
Yeah, I would say, besides a couple people, it was probably between 15 and like 25 or 30 minutes, depending. The night we shot a bunch of people, it was a little different, but if they came to my house, I could spend a little more time, so it might have been 20 or 25 minutes, yeah.
Were you shooting pretty quickly, or?
No, I would give them a general idea of what I wanted, and then I would set up the lights a particular way, and then I would take sort of a bunch, and then I would adjust the lights and do it again. Yeah, maybe 3 or 4 different ways. So, yeah.
Quick question. So in these, there's a little level of spontaneity, even though they're very still portraits, because you're saying you're interacting with the subject.
Yep.
When you go to shoot landscape from here on out, do you think your process might be a little different? Like, will you incorporate spontaneity, even though what you're shooting is very still, like landscape or architecture?
Yeah.
Do you think maybe this will kind of influence that?
I don't know. I think.
Like the lower exposures or.
Yeah, exactly.
Moving tides or.
I've always tended to shoot from the hip, sort of. Anyway, even though it's landscape.
Yeah.
I don't know. I tend to be like walking around and then I'll see something and shoot it. But I think. I mean, it certainly taught me a bit about lighting, and I've been trying to be more conscious, especially my landscape photography, of like how important lighting is.
That's my
obviously. Okay.
So also, I know about that Rembrandt lighting.
Yeah.
Also from my dad, that's one. Yeah, he's like, Rembrandt lighting is the only way. But will your approach to lighting, outdoors, in landscape and architecture, maybe change? Or
It might.
We'll see.
I don't know.
I'm curious, like, what will happen next, like, the next set of your photos.
I don't know. Yeah.
You
Only time will tell.
shoot thousands though. I mean, I know you kind of have to kind of pick the one, but you do so many. How can you set up for every? Like it's a hard setup, I think.
I'm not. You know, like serious landscape photographers tend to. They know a spot they're gonna hike to potentially, and they're gonna get there at a certain time. You know, and for me, it's more while I'm traveling, so I don't necessarily have the luxury of like picking a time and spending 3 hours just waiting for a particular light to hit, you know, a mountain or something. So
You just have to be more something catches your eye and then
Yeah.
you line it up. And
yeah, exactly. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
I'm surprised by that, because I think in the government center, the pictures you had, they look like they were long exposures with the tripod. Those were quick shots.
I shot this out of
Those
a
look
car
really,
window,
like,
actually.
Planned and
Seriously, yeah. I think through the window,
I was
actually.
seeing that's crazy. Not seeing like a tripod, you sat there for hours.
No,
You know.
but it's,
But I think that's one of my favorite things about him, not only as a photographer artist, but just as an individual, is his ability to, first of all, he has a great eye for design in general. So, you know, if he sees something that's appealing, he can articulate why, but he does have an eye that is, I obviously trust his opinion when it comes to art that's selected for the gallery, but it is something I think that he can choose something that may have a more universal appeal as well. So like, you liked something, you weren't sure why you're drawing, and it looks so great.
Yeah.
But that also is a testament to his ability to edit, and you know what to look for, when to capture it, and you know the clouds versus the mountains in that particular piece. Yeah. But that, you know, I think that, yes, it comes from school and yes, it comes from experience, but it also comes from within. There's a lot of people who don't have that. I think he is one of the few individuals who does. I just totally answered your question for you.
No.
Oh, okay.
I had nothing to say, so yeah, it's perfect.
I'll take this one. I got
And I
it.
shoot all my photos out car windows, yeah. Yeah, all these were through a car window too, actually.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it.
Driving by.
Yeah, just driving by the subject. Yeah, on a bike maybe, I don't know.
Any other questions?
I'm wondering if any of these subjects in particular have put a harder time taking photographs? And, like,
Yeah,
How?
they're not in the show though. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, like, how that situation felt and how you, like,
It was almost Vincent.
could or couldn't
It's
make
always
something
tough.
happen.
Yeah, no, a lot of them are just my friends or people I'm associated with. I mean, I tried shooting my dad when he was here, and I must have spent 40 minutes taking photos. And like one was okay, and I was like, no, you're not going to be in the show.
You're out.
But that's him. I mean, he just struggles to like be, yeah. He's always got to have a face. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm trying to find those in-between moments. Like, Crystal was very easy because she would be talking and then she would just turn back to the camera and she'd be like, perfect.
But as a professional, like you're a professional model. You do know.
Yeah,
how,
she understands.
Yeah,
Most
she
of these
understands.
people are not. So
Yeah.
I'd say everyone else is not.
What was interesting was the three siblings. The three on that wall, they were all siblings, and
Yeah.
they all had this similar kind of demeanor. And it was, at least from what I was watching, it was something that you kind of knew that moment was similar for almost all of them.
Yeah.
Like when the photo was gonna be good, because they all kind of took a certain posture, a certain demeanor.
Yeah. The one on the, Dan, is that Dan on the far right? And now I can't remember.
Yes.
Yeah. She was the most sort of, I like literally grabbed her hat and was like, here, because the way the light was blocking the one eye, I really liked that. So I was like, don't move, I'm just gonna grab your head and I'm gonna twist it. So that was like the most sort of composed I made anyone. And then the one on the left, I think I took like 4 photos of her.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I think that actually pretty much sums you up. So, which was fine. I mean, that's how it works sometimes. Yeah, so everyone's totally different.
Some people are reluctant. Rodrigo was really reluctant.
Yeah.
He as outgoing of a personality as he has, it was really hard to get him in front of the camera and relaxed enough, and then he was trying to pose so hard in some shots, but really that ultimately he wasn't trying to do anything. He was really looking.
I like your fancy outfit.
Do we have any more questions? Oh yeah, go for
What
it.
about facial, like beards and like just facial hair? Does that play a part in lighting?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it absorbs the light, as you can see with Vincent. It just sort of disappears into his vast beard. So it's certainly, you don't have that the jawline to play with, which can look really nice with like accent lighting or direct lighting or whatever. So, but I like it too. I mean, it changes the composition of the photo, but it is nice with just a smooth face to sort of be able to control the light how you want and get those nice sort of accent reflections and things like that. So it varies, yeah. It does make a difference.
The white border around it is very large. How did you decide that?
I like it. Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's good enough.
I
No.
thought it was a really creative way to create a mat as well for a photo
Yeah.
that, you know, and I mean, partly was budget, obviously. You know, you want to try to save as much as you can as a struggling artist. But it really, when you have that huge border and a larger frame, it really makes you pay a lot more attention to what their facial expression
Yeah, it
is.
focuses it
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Again, I'll take this one. Sorry. You're
I'll go
done
back
here.
behind the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it definitely focuses the focus or the viewer, I think, even a little more. Yeah, it's almost like looking through a window or something. Yeah.
Or
It's a little more dramatic.
Yeah. Or a car window, yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Anyone else? All right, I think we'll call it. Thank you again. Thank you everyone
Thank you.
for coming, and that's a wrap. There might be a little more. A few more minutes, guys.
We have reports to show.
Also, think of some really embarrassing questions for him. That'd be fun. It's like I gotta climb. I need a ladder to like get into the seat.